Shut up and sit down.
This is Holistic Vigilantes, hosted by Dr. Kimberly Bear and Dr. Jennifer Tippegraph. These two badass dentists are breaking the mold to provide modern dentistry that doesn't compromise overall health. Determined to spread the word, the Vigilantes are kicking down the door as they bring you honest answers to hard questions. Buckle up for a wild ride down the Meridian Highway as they explore the connection between oral health and whole body health, saving the world one smile at a time. And now, the Holistic Vigilantes.
Hi, I am Jennifer Tippegraph.
And I'm Kimberly Bear.
And we are the Holistic Vigilantes. Today, we have the amazing Dr. Douglas Lord. We are so excited for you to be here with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's going to be very informative. Dr. Douglas Lord attended Loma Linda Medical School, residency at GW University in Washington, D.C. Practiced 40 years.
At least
40 years as a OBGYN. He developed a reputation with cutting-edge surgical techniques and integrating with functional medicine. Now he's currently at NAVA Health and Vitality Center, completed the training at the Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine in Orlando, Florida, and he's the current medical director and founder of NAVA Health and Vitality Center.
Welcome.
An amazing facility. It's just truly incredible what you guys are doing. So.
And I go to some good dentists also.
Thank you.
Yeah, I owe Dr. Lord everything.
Yeah.
He actually, I'll just get this off the table.
Yeah,
it's
do
pretty funny.
it.
I started going to NAVA. I was referred to NAVA by a friend right before I turned 40. So that was 10 years ago. And I think I was getting my first, we'll get into this, pellet done. And Dr. Lord came in there, and as soon as I saw him, Dr. Lord actually delivered me. That's my mother's OB. So I found that to be quite amazing.
But you look exactly the same.
I know.
We know that's not true.
So yeah, if you want to we can dive right in. What is bioidentical hormone therapy?
Well, traditionally there's been a lot of hormones being given to women, and the big change in everything happened in 2002 when they did a huge study using synthetic hormones, and they did it on 17,500 women at NIH. And the study was stopped early because of all the dangers of these hormones, and it changed the whole milieu, because prior to that, I was an OBGYN, we were taught you give hormones. And the interesting thing is that the hormones, you cannot patent a natural hormone because it's a natural hormone, so you can't patent it. Well, the drug companies need to patent something so they can exclusively have it. And the big thing prior to 2002 was Premarin, and you probably heard of Premarin. Yeah. It's called from pregnant mare urine. So it's horse estrogen. And they were making pills out of that, and every postmenopausal woman that went into having hot flashes and irritability and all the other symptoms that you get were getting Premarin. And then that's what they used in the study, plus they also used a synthetic progesterone called Provera or medroxyprogesterone. And when they put that combination together, PremPro was going to set the world on fire, and they were going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, and every woman's going to be perfect. And then what they found is when they did this study, and they actually ended it early, they found it increased the risk of blood clots, stroke, dementia, and so forth, breast cancer. And the bottom line is it stopped. And because it was the last really, really huge study, everybody still in traditional medicine looks at that and says hormones are bad, when that is just wrong information.
So far from the truth.
Well, I mean, we're designed, our bodies are regulated by hormones.
I mean, hormones are everything to us, and what happens, it's interesting though, because I was an OBGYN and I read that study, I said, oh my gosh, this is what I've been trained to do. And I said, there's something wrong here. So I started really looking at alternative stuff. And in fact, prior to that, I read a book by Dr. John Lee, who was the father of progesterone, so to speak, natural progesterone. And I was so impressed with his book, and I thought, why are we giving Provera when natural progesterone is available? So I called the guy up, and I said, you know, I want to learn from you. And he said, well, I just retired. And I said, well, how can I do it? He said, well, come and see me. So I flew out to California and spent a day with him, and that was the beginning. And then the 2002 issue came, and I said, this is it. I've got to look at alternative stuff. And in the meantime, a lot of patients were coming in with the book that Suzanne Summers wrote.
Yeah.
She wrote several of them. And one of the problems I find with traditional medicine is a lot of doctors, if they don't know something, they poo-poo it and say it's no good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the things I strongly believed in was that if they came in with an idea, before I would knock it, I would say, let me study it and try to find out whether it's worthwhile. And so I actually read a Suzanne Summers book. I said, damn, this is good stuff.
And then you started doing her exercises.
Was it the leg?
Getting my thighs in shape. The Thigh Master, I think.
Yeah, it was the Thigh Master. But her books are great.
But interesting, since then, I've gotten to know Suzanne a little bit, and I actually did a half-hour seminar with her. I mean, she did an interview with me. It's on YouTube.
Oh,
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So that was probably 3 or 4 years, 5 years ago, I guess. But anyway, when I started studying all this stuff, and I went down to the Sejun Institute in Orlando to study a lot more, because one of my mentors was down there, and then I went to the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and took seminars there. And it's a whole new world. And the sad part about it is the majority of OBGYNs don't know anything about hormones. And I know what they know because I was one. I'm still board certified, but the problem is that there's many problems, but one of the problems is that the drug companies have massive control over so much, and they do most of the education. They provide a lot of money for the education, and so they're going to educate them to what they want them to
Tailor
do.
it to what they want.
Yeah, to sell their products.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're basically educating them on how to use their products. They do the same thing in dentistry.
No, I mean, the FDA, we could spend a half hour on that, and I'll skip through that because that's not what we're here for today, but it's difficult with some of the natural hormones and so forth because there's no study that has this massive number of people, but there's hundreds and hundreds of smaller studies all over the world, and Europe is way ahead of us when it comes to bioidentical hormones. The United States just has not accepted it. And I think, and I can't say I know this for sure, but I think the insurance companies have used that big study to say, well, we don't want to pay for hormones.
Exactly.
So it's an easy out for them, so they don't have to pay for them because they're not good.
Yeah. I mean, how, in terms of composition, how do the natural ones differ from the synthetic one?
Okay, here's the way I like to look at it is this. Think of every cell in your body has a receptor for every hormone in your body, whether it's thyroid, adrenal, whether it's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, whatever. And think of that as a lock and a key, the hormone being the key. Lots of keys will fit into that receptor, but only the one that was made for it will do what it's supposed to do. So what is a hormone? A hormone is nothing more than a messenger to go into that cell and tell that cell what to do. So when you put the wrong key into that lock, it's going to do the wrong thing. It may do some right things, but it's not made for it. So when you have what we call a bioidentical hormone, a hormone that is made specifically for that receptor, it goes in, does what it's supposed to do, and it works.
It's amazing.
Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
It's
like common sense. It's, it's like...
And most people don't think of a hormone as being a messenger, but it's really, that's what it really is.
Yeah.
And so, and these cells all over our body either if you put the right thing in, it works better than if you put the wrong thing in.
Sure.
And if you don't put anything in, the aging process starts to take over.
Yeah. No, it's huge. And I mean, if you, and people always think hormones just affect like sexual organs or your sex, different things, but your brain is like so dependent on that. Your brain function there's a direct correlation.
Without a doubt. I mean, when you look at the hormones, the sex hormones, they affect every aspect of your body. And what happens is that women are different than men, obviously, and they have a lot more situation with a lot more hormones that they're dealing with, because the men have very little progesterone and not very much estrogen, and it's mostly testosterone, where the women have more estrogen. They don't necessarily have more, but they have estrogen and progesterone. And the interesting thing is, and this is really fascinating to me, is women are just as dependent on testosterone as men, not the same volume of it, but it's extremely important for women. And the FDA has never approved testosterone for women. That doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means they don't have it on the shelf at CVS. And I believe, personally, the main reason for this is it must be personalized and individualized. And in our society, there's not much individualization or personalization of drugs. It's just one size fits all. In fact, if you look at the cardiovascular with women versus men, all the studies were done with men for many, many years are now just starting to recognize that women may need something different than a man. And so with the testosterone for women, which is absolutely, absolutely vital to everything, it starts disappearing in the late 30s to early 40s, and the women will then say, I started to notice my brain was getting a little foggy, and I started to put on a little weight, and my energy starts to go down, and my sex drive sort of disappeared, and they go to the OBGYN, and they say, well, what do you expect? You're starting to get old. You're going to be in menopause soon.
No, that's so true. A friend of mine, the reason I went to NAVA, it was my late 30s. Her name is Candace Pert. I don't know if you know who she is. She is a scientist. She's Nobel Prize winner. She discovered the mu receptors, and she was she told me, she's older, she told me, Kimberly, the one thing you need to do is bioidentical hormones. She was like, it will wake your brain back up.
Well, what I find, this is very interesting, because what I find is that, and we have literally thousands of people on hormones, and what I find is that the number one thing when I ask a person, they come in and they've been on hormones, what's the biggest benefit you've had? You know what number one is? My brain. Yeah. Over and over and over. As a matter of fact, I had a cardiologist, a friend of mine from Massachusetts, is a really sharp guy, and he does some integrative medicine. He's got boards in gerontology, cardiology. He's a really smart guy, but a really good doctor, and he really actually cares about his patients. He's got a concierge practice, and we started talking. We became friends over some other things, and he said, I don't know much about hormones, and everything I've been learning seems to be, I think it must be hype and so forth. He said, even when I go to the integrative conferences, sometimes I thought they might hype it up a little too much. And he said, I want to come down and visit you. So I set up pellet insertions. I set up 7 or 8 of them in a row, and he flew down from Boston and spent the day with me. And he said to me after visiting that one day, the whole day, he said, I've been all over the world studying. I've been in Switzerland, I've been in Germany, I've been in France, I've been everywhere. And he said, nothing has changed my mind more than spending one afternoon with you listening to these patients who had their hormones. He said, I told him, ask him any questions you want. He said, every time I asked him a question, he said, the same things came up. Number one, the brain every time was number one. Yeah. Brain and energy.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, energy.
Yeah. My friend is a male 48, very fit, takes great care of himself. And it took me a while to convince him, but he got on board with it. And he said immediately, he is like, it was like my brain was just woken up. And he was that's his favorite part about it. And he's been doing it now for a few years.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, and it's men and women. But see, the interesting thing for women is that men, they are attuned to menopause. So everything's going to be fine, then you go into menopause and it's all over. But that's not true. I mean, back in the 30s and 40s, you can start having hormonal imbalance, but I even have patients in their teens that have females that have hormonal imbalance. And the most imbalance in the teens is progesterone. Now, progesterone is a relaxing, calming, sleeping hormone. And what happens, all these people, everybody who has PMS basically is deficient in natural progesterone. If you have PMS, you don't have an adequate amount of progesterone.
Yeah. So that's what we were kind of going towards, like the hormone imbalance and symptoms for men versus women.
Yeah.
What are the main symptoms of a hormone, like someone that's hormonally imbalanced?
Well, it depends on the age. It depends on which hormones it are. But like, let's start out with young people. I mean, progesterone is the biggest one for younger women. And I'll speak about women specifically for the time being. But progesterone is the major one, and that's when you get PMS. Now, the problem is that there is natural progesterone because the drug companies have actually patented a way, and they call it a delivery system that they patent, but not the hormone. But they only have it in 1 and 200 milligrams, and it's in peanut oil and so forth, and it's not microcapsulated and blah, blah, blah. But if I want to put a woman that's teenager, like 18 or 20, even on hormones, on progesterone, because they're weakening, I mean, they don't have enough progesterone, I want to start them on 12.5 milligrams. Well, you can't buy it. It has to be custom made. So and most women can't take 100 milligrams until they're in their 40s or even 50 because...
That's me.
That's the problem. You can't, it gives you a lot of side effects. Now, when it's balanced to the right number, and that's why it has to be customized to each person, you don't have the side effects. And so what we will start out sometimes with 12.5 milligrams on somebody younger. And then once we get their progesterone balanced, the PMS will tend to go away.
That's amazing.
And then as they get older into their 30s, and the 40s, it starts to maybe get even worse. And in addition to that, that's when the testosterone starts to go down. And what I hear from the testosterone, my energy went down, my brain is foggy, my sex drive is gone, I just don't, I exercise, but I can't build muscle. Well,
are those the same things you hear from men?
Yes. Now, the interesting thing about men is that testosterone has been dropping significantly. Now, women, it's more dramatic because they get the average age of menopause where the estrogen finally goes is 51 years of age on average. And it's sort of dramatic. The earlier ones are, you go to the doctor, I hear it over and over again. I went to the doctor and he said, well, you're getting older, what do you expect? I mean, they complain about lack of energy, lack of sex drive, and so forth. With men, the testosterone just goes down slowly. It's not like that sudden type of thing. Excuse me. And what we've found is that over the last 20-some years, testosterone in men has been dropping dramatically. And we're now seeing people in their 30s with low testosterone.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because of lots of things, but we can't identify specifically. When your cell phone is about 3 or 5 inches from your testicles and it's radiating it all day long, that has something to do with it probably. And now, there's no evidence that it causes cancer of the testicles, but clearly, and there's no evidence.
Well, I mean, it just makes sense that it can't not affect you. I mean, it's
No, that's one thing I think. The second thing is that we are bombarded with Wi-Fi. and all the electromagnetic energy around. And this 5G is supposed to be significantly even worse. And in Bluetooth, I mean, we are absolutely bombarded with that. Now, that's one area, because I think that affects the relationship between your brain and your testicles as far as the signals that go down. Another thing that we know is that the plastics in the environment can have a significant effect on the whole endocrine system.
Especially with men, BPA.
The good news about that is with drinking plenty of good water and everything and getting rid of the plastics, you can actually reverse that. But I think there's also toxins in the environment. There's many, many toxins.
GMOs, factory farming.
GMO, I'm a big believer that GMO has a lot to do with it. We see that in many different areas. So what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing a lot of men in their 30s whose testosterone is really low. And another interesting thing is that LabCorp, which is the big company, and they put their normals out. They're not normals. What they are is averages. And the bottom line is that they in male testosterone, in July of 17, I think it was, it could have been 18, I don't remember for sure, they just lowered the whole normal ranges. And what it amounts to, for testosterone for men, was 348 to 1197 prior to that. And then they finally lowered it to 260 to 900.
That's huge. And what
That's insane.
What
That
about
is
the
insane.
sperm? I heard that what they're considering normal sperm counts
Is going down
now and 20 years ago is night and day.
Going down significantly.
And then, of course, everybody's having fertility issues.
Now, the interesting thing is we do a lot of testosterone replacement in men and women, of course. But if you do testosterone in a younger guy, two things happen. One is his sperm count's going to go down, so you have to talk to them and ask them specifically, are you going to have children or not? But even then, what we do with the younger people is I put them on Clomid.
Ah,
Now,
interesting.
clomiphene citrate, or Clomid as we know, has been around since I was in medical school, which goes way back, long way back. So,
What is Clomid?
Clomid is a drug that stimulates the ovaries and the testicles as well, but it was never given to men until recently, and most doctors still never give it to men. But it was good to make a woman ovulate. So, so we've used it in infertility for 60 years. It's been around, and the bottom line is, it also works very well to stimulate the testicles for men to make it. So when I have a 35-year-old guy who has a low count of testosterone, I'll put him on Clomid, and we can double, sometimes even triple the number, and it is also helping his sperm count if he wants to have children.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That is so
and the
cool.
other one is we can use also called human chorionic gonadotropin, which is a hormone of pregnancy, and that stimulates the testicles also.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
That's the
interesting.
HCG.
HCG.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
I'm addicted.
The HCG?
Yeah. Let's just say, so HCG is you guys use it, one of the things you use it for at NAVA is for weight loss.
Yes.
And the idea behind it is a lot of people go who need to lose a lot of weight, because you can lose a lot of weight with it, but the idea is that it will burn. And diet.
Yes.
It burns.
It burns fat and it
not
doesn't
muscle.
burn muscle.
So as an athlete, I started doing it a few years ago, a few times a year, because before a marathon, I would want to drop, and I could. And if you looked at doctors are like, oh, you don't need to lose any weight. And then I get on the scale, they're like, yeah, you could safely drop about 10 or 20. But
you want to lose some fat and you want to build muscle.
Fat. So I would do it. And at first, the first time I did it was just because I had this, as I was getting older, I had these 10 pounds. And when I lose those 10 pounds, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but my blood sugar, the difference in how I feel in my blood sugar, everything is amazingly different with this 10-pound thing. So when I did it to drop the 10 pounds, but what I noticed is every time I do it, I feel so good. I sleep great. I have no headaches. I have no pain.
But you're getting rid of a lot of toxins.
Yeah, because it makes you dry. It basically makes me stop eating and drinking all the things I shouldn't be. But I love that stuff.
But the interesting thing about HCG, it was discovered by an endocrinologist in India back in the 40s. And what he was giving it to boys who have testicles had not descended, and these were fat boys, and they didn't have any testosterone, and it found out that it descended their testicles, and they started losing weight and feeling much better. And when they saw that losing weight, he said, you know, I better study this a little bit more. He opened up a clinic in Rome in the 50s and had people coming from all over the world with this HCG weight loss. It was really a fascinating story.
That is
and
super interesting.
We're looking at adding a new thing that my friend in Boston, who's been doing this for years, said using it's a natural supplement of the endocrine glands that actually helps keep it off more. Because a lot of people, if they go back, and he said with this supplement that he's using, and we're starting to do a series on that right now to help keep it off, because you can lose the weight, but it can come back if you just go back to your old habits. However, using this hypothalamic substance, it actually can help keep it off much, much longer. And
that's great.
But we've had really, really good success. I mean, you can lose a lot of weight with it in a hurry.
And it sort of makes it's almost like you're doing intermittent fasting with it, like the 1 meal a day, but you're not hungry. And it's not a stimulant. And people, and this is not like, I see all of this as, to some people, it would sound like, oh, you're taking these drugs. This is basically helping my body. I'm compensating for all the bad stuff that my body is subjected to and filled with. I mean, I am mercury laden. I got so much. I'll never get rid of everything I have in my system. But I'm so much healthier now, getting ready to turn 50, than I was in my 30s before I went to NAVA. I mean, I'm so much healthier.
Well, I mean, and you're doing marathons now. So
I'm getting faster.
Really, really
I'm getting faster every year. And this year, I turned 50 is going to be my fastest year. 3.5, 3:30.
How do you like that? I know more about you than you think I
do. But this fall, I'm gonna beat that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna beat that. So we'll see.
You're getting close
with a peptide therapy.
Yeah, so let's talk about peptide therapy.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah,
I love peptides. Peptides are.
That could be a bumper sticker.
I know.
I love peptides.
There you go.
So you guys at NAVA do all kinds of amazing treatments, but one of the new ones, this is fairly new, correct?
With the peptides?
Yeah, peptide therapy.
Relatively new. They actually started out in Australia and they came to the United States, and I've been studying them now for probably 4 or 5 years. And there's 25 or 30 of them. And peptides are nothing more but a different combination of proteins put together. Anything could be like amino acid, but and if over 50, so it's somewhere between 2 or 3 and 50 amino acids put together, and they call them peptides, and they can do amazing things.
So, but people most of us actually, but some people more so than others are actually peptide deficient. Like, and what would the symptoms be if you were peptide deficient?
Well, I don't think I'm not so sure you're peptide deficient, because we don't have any ways of really doing that. But for example, what can the peptides do for you? I mean, one of the most interesting ones is the CJC1295 and ipamorelin, which is the newest iteration, but they've been through probably 7 or 8 iterations. It actually stimulates your pituitary to make more human growth hormone.
Wow.
Now, we know that human growth hormone is really, really important, and what happens is human growth hormone starts to decrease around age 25 for most people. Mm-hmm. And all these people that were juicing with the steroids and stuff, then you'd see their big muscles and they were hitting more home runs and all that kind of stuff. And like Barry Bonds, the big home run hitter, his head size increased and he had to wear a bigger hat because of human growth hormone was stimulating his growth. Well, with the peptide, where you actually stimulate your pituitary's ability to make more human growth hormone, you can't take too much because your body's making it, and it's your human growth hormone.
Yeah.
And human growth hormone is very expensive. So that's one of the peptides. But there's a whole raft of different peptides that stimulate the body to do what it needs to do better.
Do you guys have 3 that you do at NAVA?
Well, 3 basic ones.
Yeah. And so the one is basically for what are the other 2?
The BPC 157 is an amazing peptide in helping the body heal itself, and I can give you a couple of examples of that.
Yeah.
I had one of my friends I play golf with who had he had his Achilles inflamed, and he was taking drugs for that and everything, and it just didn't get better, and he was worried that he was going to rupture it. I gave him some BPC 157. I had him inject it right into his calf, and he said within 4 days the pain was completely gone. My wife has a torn meniscus, and we went to Cabo just before all the shutdown of everything. In fact, it was when we came back, that's when the whole pandemic hit. And she had, all of a sudden, it started really bothering her. Well, I don't travel without taking my BPC 157 with me. So she could hardly walk down to the beach, and I injected her right into the muscle above the knee, and within 2 days the pain was gone, and within 3 days she was walking with no pain, and the bend in the knee, the whole nine.
So it's not like a steroid. It's actually
It is not a steroid.
It is just helping your body heal.
Exactly.
It's speeding up the healing process, which slows down as we age because we probably have less peptides. I mean, it's like this.
But we have no way of measuring that. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't even measure human growth hormone very well. I mean, we have a IGF-1, but it's not a direct measurement of it. But when we use these peptides, they're the 2 major ones that we use.
I mean, there's got to be a correlation between aging and your hormones going down. I mean, think of all the diseases that are most commonly happen to women after menopause. You know, you have these hormones drop, everything's imbalanced.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
If you look at what hormones, bioidentical hormones, can do for a woman, and what happens is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. We're talking about those 3. It actually affects the brain. There's now studies out that estrogen and testosterone decrease the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. No question about it. Number 2 is that there's a new study out in the ophthalmology literature this past year that estrogen will decrease the risk of macular degeneration. There's another study in the cardiac literature that says that if you, as a cardiologist, do not ask when the last menopause was, you're a bad cardiologist, because people who have premature menopause actually have advanced heart disease earlier. So we look at heart disease, that they affect that significantly. The average woman at 75 is going to have osteoporosis. Now, if she has not had testosterone and she muscles deteriorate, she falls, she has osteoporosis, you break a hip, you got about a 50% chance of dying within a year. So when you have the hormones, particularly testosterone, which is just as vital or maybe more vital than estrogen, it helps the muscle. You can build muscle, and we have lots of athletes who are using a lot of the peptides as well as the testosterone to build their muscle. And so muscle is really important, because you're going to lose 1 to 3% of your muscle every year without, even if you exercise, it's not going to, you can't hold it as much. And then for the bone, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, all 3 of them help protect the bone. And we've actually had patients who've reversed osteoporosis with hormones.
I totally believe that. They're actually researching it now, using bioidentical hormones to treat COPD. It's almost reversing it, the lung function. It's supposed to be amazing. They're taking people who have like COPD and putting them on bioidentical hormones, and they're seeing their lung function almost go back to normal.
And that's hard to do, because I mean, with COPD, you actually damage tissue. So
yeah, I think it's just
estrogen can help regenerate tissue. There's no question about it. It's angiogenic. In other words, it builds the blood vessels up, and that's one of the reasons it helps with the...
And your lungs regenerate, was it every 5 to 7 years? Remember the smoking lung, the black lung, and then you stop smoking for 5 years and then it turns pink?
That's not my specialty. You probably know more about that than I do.
I did do a lot of research on it because I had COVID and my lungs were destroyed and I couldn't run for a few months. And my running friends who were just so freaked out about it, I was like, our lungs regenerate.
Well, our whole body can regenerate, and when you have the right milieu of the stuff that we need, the hormones and various other things, nutrition, etc., you can regenerate. The body can regenerate itself. No question about it. In fact, I read several books on aging recently. There's one by David Sullivan. I don't know if you heard about this one. He's a researcher at Harvard, and basically the people in this field are saying that people who are born today, 50% will live beyond 100 years. Because of the new stuff that we're finding constantly.
Yeah, I totally believe it.
And let me finish a little bit more. So we talked about the bones, we talked about the muscle. The other thing that degenerates in women enormously, it's a lot less so in men, is the vaginal area. I mean, one of the things that happens is when you lose estrogen, the vagina not only dries out, it thins out, it loses its elasticity and its turgor, and intercourse can become very painful. But in addition to that, the muscles get weaker, and without testosterone, and that's why women, as they get older, frequently start to leak urine when they cough and sneeze, because the muscles are weak and the vagina is not as healthy as it was. And in addition to that, the bladder is, in fact, we're seeing more and more urologists actually giving estrogen vaginally because it helps the bladder. And so when you have this having to go urgency and all that, it can actually help that. So try and, genital atrophy, we call it. In other words, the aging of the vagina. And we can completely reverse that. I mean, I have women coming in who are in their 60s and 70s who have not been on hormones and cannot have intercourse at all. And one of my favorite stories was a 70-year-old came in. Her friends advised her to come in. She said to me, and I love this story, she said, I love my husband so much, but I'd rather read a book than go to bed with him. And after we put her hormones back, she came in and she said, Dr. Lord, we're like rabbits, she said. She said, I can't wait to sleep with my husband now, and it's
That's
good.
amazing.
That's so great.
That is great.
To me, it's a lot of fun.
Like. And that's what it should be like.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, because we know that sexual intercourse is healthy for many parts of the body, including the brain and so forth. I mean, we know that for a fact.
No, I believe it, and
So giving it up at 50 just doesn't make sense to me.
That's amazing.
Yes. Well, so I have one thing. So we talk about testosterone. There's different forms. Obviously, you can do cream, you can do pellets. We talked about Clomid. Is there anything that maybe we should talk about in terms of above, because I have a friend who's in this space as well, and when I told her about my experience of starting on testosterone cream, I feel great, and she's like, that's amazing, keep doing what you're doing, but there's other things you want to think about in terms of thyroid, in terms of higher up brain function.
Good. I mean, the body, we look at thyroid, adrenals, and sex hormones as an orchestra. And when one of the pieces of the orchestra, the woodwinds or the strings or whatever are not functioning properly, the whole body doesn't. So when we look at the hormones, we look in totality of not just sex hormones, but we look at the adrenal glands and we look at the thyroid. I mean, the thyroid is your master metabolism. And again, one of the problems with thyroid in traditional medicine is they look at a range and they say, if you're in this range, if you're just barely above the low number, you're normal. But if you don't ask the questions of what's going on with thyroid, I mean, one of the things is that you can be in the normal range, but it's not normal for you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we see it over and over and over again. I mean, one of the things that a question you want to ask, if I'm giving you too much information,
No, this is great.
you.
This is
Please
great.
stop
Perfect.
me.
Yeah, no,
That's one thing when I refer my patients to NAVA, they'll be like, well, I just had my blood work done. I said, the thing is with NAVA,
they do this much.
Exactly. Well, they're at their traditional places. At NAVA, it's like they'll look at your normal range, and if you're on the high side of normal or low side of normal, that's what they're looking at. It's not just like, oh, you're in this range and you're fine.
I read a book called Stop the Thyroid Madness. I don't know if you ever heard about this. It was a woman who got totally frustrated with traditional medicine, and she finally said, I'm going to learn this stuff myself. So she started reading textbooks and everything, and actually fixed her own thyroid. But one of the things is, if your temperature, basal body temperature, is less than 98.6, frequently that'd be a sign.
Yeah.
Some people say their skin is thinning, drying out. They're starting to lose some hair. Their energy is going down. They frequently are constipated. There's a lot of little symptoms, and when you ask these symptoms, it's a very strong sign, and we put these people on thyroid, and those symptoms disappear. Another symptom that is a really telltale is cold fingers and toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people have that. And when we get their thyroid optimal, not in the normal range per se, but optimal. Optimal is the key.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I used to get a physical every year at a traditional internist. Every year I'd get a physical. I'm supporting a household of children. I wanted to stay healthy. Every year I was super, super healthy. No issues, no medications. And I went to NAVA, and I just had my physical, and everything was great. And then at NAVA, I went and I gave them all my blood work, and they sat me down the next week to sit down and go, and we're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm okay. They're like, how are you sleeping? I was like, not that good. I was hypothyroidic. I had zero testosterone, like basically no testosterone, low progesterone, and my estrogen was through the roof. And they're just like,
estrogen dominant.
Yeah.
I was estrogen dominant, which is my mother was, and she had breast cancer. I mean, so and
that increases your risk, without a doubt.
Yes, and so just the whole idea of being balanced, they explained to me balancing you out and stimulating your thyroid and my adrenal fatigue. I mean, I was a wreck. I didn't even know it.
You're not anymore.
Not anymore. I was
Look
just
at you.
pushing through. I was just pushing through.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was just sort of pushing through. And I had started running at that point, but I would go for a long run with my friends, a lot of them younger, my running group, and I would be destroyed for the rest of the day. And I would always ask them, what are you going to do after this? And I would push through because I'm tough. But at the end, I wouldn't be able to do anything the rest of the day. And they were like, how are you recovering after your long runs? And I was like, not well. And they were like, you're going to feel like $1 million. And they were totally right.
Yeah.
And I mean, and after that, I was just like, that was actually mind blowing for me to realize what I had going on. And it just made sense.
Well, I mean, we see it every day. I mean, it blows my mind. I mean, the only reason that I'm still practicing medicine at my age is because I absolutely get a thrill out of seeing a patient drag in and come back and say, man, I'm feeling so good, I can't believe it. I had another story I got to tell you, a quick one.
Yeah.
This lady comes in, she'd been the pellets, for the hormone pellets, for I think probably 5.5, 6 years, and she looked at me and she said, you just can't believe how much you changed my life. And she said, I just want to thank you so much for that. And she said, now, I don't have to, but if I had to steal to get my pellets, I'd do it. She said, I can afford them, but she said, if I couldn't, I'd steal.
I referred a friend to you, and she said she was like, when she first started eating the pellets, it changed her life completely. It changed her marriage. It changed a lot of things. And she's a very small girl, and this was, you didn't place her pellets, but she was getting a lot of her husband was like, oh, you're getting these little scars, which now I don't even get it as scars or anything from you guys insert, but she was having some issues with that. This was like maybe 8 years ago. And she's like, I remember she said to me, she's like, I told my husband, I don't care if they take a shotgun and shoot me in the butt every time I'm getting these pellets because I feel so great.
We had a lady that came in early in NAVA, and she paid for her pellets in cash. And she said, because most people pay with a credit card, she said, well, I write a check for about $150 to $100 more when I get groceries, so my husband won't know that I'm getting some extra money. And she said, that's how I'm paying for these pellets. Well, the next time she came in, she put his credit card down, and she said, he was so happy with what you did. He said, take my card and pay for it.
I can't even imagine how many relationships that you've helped.
You've saved, probably.
Probably,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
All conversations and information exchanged during participation of the Holistic Vigilantes podcast or interaction within the social media umbrella of the Holistic Vigilantes pages are strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. Back to the show.
So, and then now to segue a little bit into IV therapy.
We do a lot of IV therapy. It started out back with the Myers cocktail, which everybody in integrative medicine knows. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but Myers was at Hopkins, and he was in Baltimore. That's where it all started. Now, every integrative practice in the country, in the world practically, does the Myers cocktail, and it's just using vitamins and minerals and so forth to add to where you are. But we've now, I think we have 12 different IVs for all kinds of stuff. I mean, one of the most interesting ones, which we don't do because it doesn't really fit with our model, is for the people who have a hangover when they're drunk.
Yeah.
But
it works.
But it works.
And it works for headaches, just headaches in general.
Absolutely.
It works, yeah.
So, I mean, right now, the people come in and we have, for nutrition, we have them for detoxing, we have for cold and flu if you're exposed to it. But the newest one, and I think the real kicker, is the NAD therapy.
Yeah.
Nicotinamide is it's a form of vitamin B3, really is what it is. But the NAD is according to David Sullivan, I think is his name in the book, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, the #1 anti-aging thing that they've come up with in all their studies is NAD therapy.
Yeah, this fascinates me. Please tell us more about this.
Well, and NAD therapy, what it basically does, our whole body is controlled by the mitochondria. The mitochondria are these small organelles inside of every cell in our body, and these mitochondria are where all ATP is what energy is, and all ATP comes from the mitochondria. And as the mitochondria age and they don't make as much energy and so forth, so any way we can regenerate the mitochondria is really important. The other thing that's sort of fascinating to me is that when the mitochondria get old and senescent, if they don't die, it's called apoptosis, you know about that, I'm sure. If they don't die, then what happens is that they can actually cause cancer.
Yeah,
and so
damage.
With the DNA damage and so forth. So with the NAD therapy, what this does is it regenerates the mitochondria so that they can make more energy, and it regenerates your whole body, but it also helps the senescent ones die and get them out, so it reduces the risk of cancer. And when we start the NAD therapy, sometimes the first session can take as long as 4 hours because you have to go very, very slowly because your body's not used to it.
I did the first session.
How long did it take?
It only took me 2 hours. I did a bigger batch.
You were in good shape.
Is that what that means?
That's exactly what
So
it
I was
means.
like, I felt like a little but no, I felt fine.
I mean, a lot of people take 4 hours. Now, I was able to do it in a little over 2 hours myself. And then you build up, and the whole idea is to get about 6 grams total. And then in addition to that, over a period of time, you regenerate. I mean, you do another one. But we also have some oral stuff called True Niagen, which is NAD. But the problem with the oral, and it's not a bad thing to use after you've really got your level up, but the oral, you only get about 10% absorption versus the.
Yeah.
And one of our doctors at NAVA said that the NAD therapy changed her life. She said, my brain is so much sharper, my energy is so much more, and she says, I just feel more alive. So again, having an armamentarium of many, many different things so that we can treat all the kind of things that people want to be treated for. And of course, you know, the nutrition is another major aspect of it, getting the gut healthy.
Yeah.
But we're not just talking about that today so much.
But so
so the in terms of like regeneration and decreasing inflammation and things like that, there's another new treatment, because I go to NAVA myself, obviously, but the Equiscope.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Echoscope, it's one of the most interesting things. We've just introduced that within the last 6 months.
I'm very excited about this.
Yes, me too.
I've been looking at electromagnetic energy for years, and I think that that's really going to be one of the major features of future medicine. And there's a lot of electrical stuff on the market. And I've looked at some, and they range anywhere from $50 to $20,000 and so forth. And the Equiscope, this is really fascinating. The way I found out about the Equiscope is I have a niece whose husband is a cowboy down in Georgia, and he's a very big name cowboy, and he's a tough guy. And they have a friend that's in Alabama who came up to visit them, and their horse was lame, and she started using the Equiscope on this horse to try to heal the horse, and it changed the horse overnight. And so she started using it on him also, because he's always injured with somebody's wrestling steers and roping and all that kind of stuff. And so they were telling me about it, so I started studying it. And then I called the guy out in California who owns the technology for this for the world. And it's fascinating when I started talking to him. And I'll tell you another really interesting story. This isn't human, but it's cool. About in 2012, I think it was, a friend of his called him up and said, I got this racehorse I bought for $35,000, and it's really fast, but it keeps getting inflamed, and we're not allowed to use butazolidine and all that stuff on the horse. So he said, could you come over and you put your Equiscope on this horse? And he did. He treated it for a couple of weeks. And the next race, the horse won. Had never won a race before. And it qualified him for the Santa Anita Derby. And he won the Santa Anita Derby.
Wow.
That qualified him for the Kentucky Derby. He won the Kentucky Derby from the 19th position, and then won the Preakness.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And a consortium, the way I understand it, a consortium from Japan came over and offered millions and millions of dollars for this horse, and he sold it. But you can look it up. It's the name of the horse was I'll Have Another. So when I heard about this, amazing. I said, you know, how much are they using it on humans? So I called John Thorpe. He said his story was unbelievable. He actually tore a knee up. He was a stuntman in Hawaii with Hawaii Five-0 and Magnum PI, and he was also a friend of Lee Majors and was doing stuff in Hollywood, and he broke his knee in like 13 places or something. And they had pins and screws and everything, and they wanted to do a knee replacement, and his knee's actually cockeyed and sticks out and everything, has no cartilage of any kind. Within 2 years of using this machine, this was a long time ago, and it's now a much more sophisticated machine than it was then. He ran the Hawaiian triathlon 20 times, and he has no cartilage in his knee. It's deformed, but he has no pain.
Jeez, there you go.
That's a true
and pain's
story.
a lot of time a limiting factor.
So explain what this thing does.
Well, what it does is we do it two different ways. We will treat locally, and it uses microelectrical current. And what it does is you can evaluate the current in the body, the microcurrents because we're all electricity. I mean, everything in our body is electrical. And it gets all messed up with Wi-Fi particularly, and all the electromagnetic energy that is attacking our bodies. And that's one of the things you see with acupuncture, trying to straighten these meridians out. Well, this is like acupuncture on steroids, so to speak, because what it does is it finds out where the impedance is, and then it breaks through that. And ultimately what it is doing is gets rid of the inflammation in your body it increases the blood flow to the area. Circulation is better. That helps get rid of some of the toxins. But it also then, with the circulation being better, it cuts down on inflammation. And what it really is doing is opening up the ion channels so that it can regenerate the mitochondria. Now, I think this interesting thing is we're doing it with NAD chemically, but we're doing it electrically with Equiscope. And all of it is eventually opening up those channels and feeding the mitochondria and getting rid of toxicities. So it allows the body to heal itself. It doesn't actually heal you, but it allows the body, it makes a milieu for the body to actually heal itself.
So it's getting rid of the interferences in the field.
Exactly.
Basically what acupuncture does.
But it does it way better than acupuncture, because acupuncture only opens up the channels
and it's very
in
slow.
In a line, and it's good. We
I love it. I love it.
I love acupuncture.
Yeah, but it sounds like
Rachel
it's
is amazing.
But
Acupuncture.
Rachel is very, very good,
Yeah.
no question about it. And we have another one down in Virginia who's spectacular. And one, just one sidelight. I mean, one of the things at NAVA that we try to do is to have lot of different things so that everybody's going to respond to something a little bit differently.
Patient-centered care.
Patient-centered care. So, but with the Equiscope, I have a guy who's, you're going to appreciate this. This guy was a runner, and he was running 50 miles a week.
Yeah.
He's addicted to running, and he came in with neuropathy of both of his legs, and came in with a cane, and he said, I can't hardly feel my feet anymore. Within 3 sessions of the Equiscope, he was feeling and he was walking without a cane. He said, this is absolutely phenomenal.
That's great.
So this piece of equipment, so if you make an appointment at NAVA for this, do you treat an area? Like someone comes in with a complaint, or is it full body? Like what do you focus on?
That's a great question. We usually start out with where the symptoms are, whether it's low backache, whether it's a disc issue, or whether it's a painful knee. The bottom line is we'll start out with that, but also then we use the systemic, and in dentistry we call it Odontin Therapy, where we actually go with every single tooth all the way around from all of your teeth and put the electrical current into there.
This is something we could use in our office.
You could theoretically, absolutely, and there's some evidence that insurance is going to actually pay for some of this stuff. I know you don't accept insurance, and we don't either right now, but it's very, very interesting. But I'll be happy to show you that.
Yeah.
In fact,
well, we file insurance.
Yeah.
But we file it for. I would love to. I want to definitely. I know when I did my naturopathic training, but that was like 13, 14 years ago. They trained us with for Electro Acupuncture. So I have one upstairs that's basically, but it's just a little point.
Well, this one we have it's a ball on the end of it. It's a chrome ball, and you put it up, and what we basically do is we have multiple microelectrical currents, and we run it through, and you just do every single tooth all the way around in the bottom.
And we have to do this.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll do it for you.
All right. Yeah, no, this sounds amazing.
It's very, very interesting, because if you look at the acupuncture meridians, your teeth are connected to every other part of your body.
I know.
You already know that.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, from a personal standpoint, that happened after I removed my failing root canal tooth that was linked with my gallbladder. All of a sudden, I'm digesting fats.
Well, it's the other thing that's fascinating to me is that when you start doing this, you're going to be slobbering all over the place. You have to put a little towel underneath, because it stimulates the heck out of these saliva.
Is it painful at all?
No pain whatsoever.
Wow.
Zero.
How long does one of these treatments usually last?
Well, generally the treatment lasts for about, it depends, 45 minutes is a good treatment. Now, the Odontin Therapy is probably a little bit less than that. But like you say, we'll start out with locally wherever the pain is. And generally what we say is minimum of 3 treatments, anything less than 3 treatments, because after the first treatment, they may actually have more pain because they're detoxing. And so we tell, one of the things you want to do is drink a lot of water before, especially with electrolytes, and water afterward. Electrolytes are good. So we want to do a minimum of 3 treatments, because you might say, oh, after the first treatment, I'm worse than I was. But if they
Things are moving.
moving, and so then we do what they call systemics, and we have all kinds of different systemics where you can use from the foot, you can use the teeth, you go up and down the spine, and treat the whole body electrically. I mean, if you think about it, we have what they call the governing vessel, where we go from the right around the rectal area all the way up over the head down to here. And we just treat every single one of those with the...
Has anyone used this to treat cancer?
Yes, they're treating cancer with it down in a place called Sonaviv in Mexico. And, you know, I'm not studying that because we're not going to treat cancer. That's not our area. We support cancer, but we don't treat cancer. In other words, so we support cancer with some of our IVs and with the hyperbaric chamber and with the Equiscope, but we're not interested in that area because you have to be highly specialized for that, and that's not our area.
You guys are more about preventing.
We are all about preventing and trying to get you healthy and keep you healthy.
It's a very European, like in America, you go to the dentist, you go to the doctors when you're sick, and like when I go to NAVA, so I don't get sick. Yes. Like it's, you know, which makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's all about. So the Equiscope, I mean, so there's many different things, but we treated a person, this is an interesting story also, we treated a person who he was scheduled for a knee replacement because he was in constant knee pain. And he went the morning of the surgery, they did an EKG, and they said, "You've had a heart attack, we're not doing your surgery." And they said, "It looks like a minor one, but it's a heart attack, so you've got to go get treated before we're going to be doing the surgery." We did 16 treatments on his knee, and he's had no pain since, none. So we think what's happened is that even though his cartilage is damaged or whatever, with the Equiscope, it cuts the inflammation down, and inflammation is the cause of almost all of your pain. And so even without the cartilage, it smooths out the joints to the point where there's no pain. You're in great shape.
Yeah, our bodies are designed to compensate. I mean, they can do amazing things.
And that's the beauty of the Equiscope, because it allows your body to heal itself. It doesn't heal you personally.
Which is what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, usually we get in the way.
Well, we can get in the way a lot.
I know, I know.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, you're
this
amazing.
was amazing.
I could listen to you all day. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
It was
We're
my
so
pleasure.
thankful for
I have
you.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
So, if you had to choose one of all your treatments that you could do, like indefinitely, only one, what would you choose?
Hormones.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
I've been on testosterone for 22 years.
Well, you look amazing.
You do.
I know, seriously.
Yeah, I'm like making a mental list of all the things I like, all these things I want to do now. I mean, it's so great. You know?
Well, I mean, the hormones are the center of everything. I mean, they really are. And from my point of view, I don't want to just have to choose one thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose that, and of the hormones for men and women, number one is testosterone. I mean, it's and if you let me spend another minute or so.
Yeah, go.
I mean, we used to believe, and traditional medicine still seems to believe this, that testosterone is bad for the heart, it's bad for the prostate, and it causes prostate cancer. But what we found is that low testosterone increases prostate. I mean, not what we found, but this is in the literature. And the number one expert, in my opinion, in the whole world is Abraham Morgenthaler from Harvard. And he put a conference together in Prague in 2017. And in that conference, he invited the top testosterone experts in the world from all the different fields of urology, endocrinology, whatever. And it was all about male testosterone. This was not about women. And they got a conference together, and they looked at all the world's literature, and they threw out the garbage and emphasized the quality studies. And when they were done, they came to a consensus, and Mayo Clinic published that consensus. So, and what they believed was that low testosterone increases prostate cancer. Low testosterone increases diabetes. Low testosterone increases all-cause mortality. Low testosterone increases heart disease. And when you put all those things together, it's amazing. And there's a huge problem with low testosterone in the world because of all the electromagnetic
And it's getting
energy.
worse. It's getting worse.
And it's getting worse.
And younger.
And younger. I mean, I saw a 17-year-old with low testosterone. And he had no hair on his body, and he didn't have any muscle. And when I started treating him with Clomid, it changed his entire life. I mean, it's just like, oh my God! He says, "This is fabulous." He's athletic, and he's playing baseball now, and he's just a great kid.
And then one more thing. So, like, I have a lot of friends who have had male kids who aren't growing, like don't really take off, like their testicles are dropping later. They're having all kinds of problems, and then they're given the option to give them growth hormones. But really, do you think it should be growth hormone, or do you think it should just be testosterone?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be very honest. I'm not an expert on that, and I haven't studied that so much. And so the question is, I don't know the answer to that. But I think sometimes growth hormone can be very good for underdeveloped children. But, you know, it probably would be interesting to do a study with the peptides and some things to stimulate it. But clearly, I mean, this young gentleman that I've talked about, who was 17, his testosterone was just really, really low. And we never were able to determine why. But we're going to treat it anyway, and it just changed his whole life. I'm sure.
And I wonder even because when you're a kid and you're growing and your brain is developing with a low testosterone,
They just did an interesting study in Australia, and they took a group of, I don't remember how many, 50 or 75 men who were over 65, low testosterone, and diabetes. And they put them on, got the testosterone level up, and 50% of them, within 6 months, the diabetes had disappeared.
Yeah.
But the other thing about testosterone is very anti-inflammatory. So one of the things we hear with people with their athletes especially, but even older people, when they have joint issues with their pain, they come in, they get their pellets, and all the joint pains is gone. And when the pellet starts to wear out, all of a sudden,
it's so true. You do start feeling it. You start falling apart a little bit.
The other thing that's very interesting, if you'll just allow me another minute here. With the pellets, I think is fascinating. The pellets, the way the pellet is pure testosterone or estrogen, but we're talking about testosterone now. As the blood flows around that pellet, it slowly releases it into your system, and your body can't tell whether it came out of the testicle or whether it came out of the pellet, because it's the identical hormone going to the identical same place. Now, how does it get the testosterone in your body? It's the blood flow around it, and so the blood flow goes around it, and it slowly releases it into the blood. Now, think about this. If the blood flow is greater, you're going to get more testosterone. So when you exercise more, you have more testosterone because your muscles need it more because you're exercising more.
Yeah.
So it's self-limiting. That's why it's better than injections or creams because it's continuous. And so what happens with the athletes, and you may know this yourself, most women women last 4 months. But if you're a real athletic and you're working more, you may only last 3 months. Mm-hmm. And for the men, it's only 6 months because we give them a lot more testosterone, obviously. Mm-hmm. I mean, we give men 10 to 20 times more than we give a woman. And the idea is that men who are exercising vigorously, then we will give them maybe at 5 months instead of 6 months. But they can adjust the timing how much they're exercising. So it's really a cool way of your muscles need more, you get more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did the cream for a year, and it was every time I went to go and have my blood checked, they're like, "Yeah, you got nothing. Like you're low again." And then when I did the pellet, I could really tell. It's with the recovery. Like I could tell that, I had.
Recovery is much faster.
Recovery, like I would be sore, if I really worked out hard, but I was like fine. I wasn't destroyed. Like I was fine. Like a normal person with normal testosterone levels would be, because I was always destroyed before. And then the brain function.
I mean, to me, the brain function is the most exciting part of it, but all the other stuff is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's so funny you bring this up, because the last weekend or 2 weekends ago, my sister was visiting, and she's like, "You're like the Energizer Bunny. Where are you getting all this energy from?" Now I'm putting it all together. It's my testosterone.
You know, the other thing that they ask about is side effects for testosterone, and that's why it has to be customized for each individual. But I did have the first lady that I ever saw with the testosterone. Do you have any side effects? She said, "Well, I'm starting to get a little hair on my upper lip."
You get the hair.
And I said, "Well, maybe I'll just lower it the next time." She looked at me. This is a true story. She said, "Like hell you will." She said, "I haven't felt this good. I can wax."
I know.
She'll wax
But don't you dare take that.
It's called laser. Yeah. I know. Same thing. I'm like,
True story.
It's fixable.
Yeah, I'll take the hair. No problem.
It's like from when you're, and it's similar to when I was like in my, because then when you get older, you don't get that, and then went back to how it was when I was like maybe 18 or 19. But that's fine with me. I'll take it.
For me, the best thing is I'm having fun practicing medicine again. And so one of the things that I'm seeing over and over again is the studies on doctors are so dissatisfied, and there's so much stress and psychiatric issues and everything else. And to me, I feel like I've been reborn. I'm having so much fun.
It's amazing.
You're constantly growing and learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Lord.
It was a pleasure, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.